here, and I've had the pleasure of knowing one of our speakers for over 20 years now. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dennis Tucker, the publisher of Whitman, and Bill Fivaz, a long-time numismatist and air specialist, and they're going to do a talk on the cherry picking scene in 2020.
Thank you. I'd also like to introduce Brandon Hall. He's an associate editor at Whitman, and he's been helping us with the Cherry Picker's Guide. Let me open this discussion with a rhetorical question. If a book on error coins has a typo, how do you know? Now, of course, die varieties are different from errors, but the topic of today's discussion will be cherry picking, which is examining coins which appear to be normal at first glance and looking at them for tiny die characteristics like over mint marks, double dies, and misplaced dates and that type of thing, which reveal them to be rare and very valuable. This is something that collectors can do, dealers can do, anyone who has the time and the eye and the inclination and the knowledge can do this and can have a lot of fun with it. We know people who specialize in it as dealers, and people who have a lot of fun making money doing this cherry picking. This is an example. You'll see on the left a regular 1901 Barber dime minted in New Orleans. And at the right, you see a repunched mint mark called an O over horizontal O. A tiny part of the design, a tiny part of a tiny part of the design, but if you know what to look for, it reveals it to be quite valuable. The regular coin, worth maybe $20, $25. The variety, $175 or so. So definitely something that's worth your time and effort if you have the knowledge of what to look for. Give you another example. This is a coin that you can find in your pocket change. It's a 2015 Homestead National Monument of America, America the Beautiful Quarter. So you can get it for 25 cents. If you go to a coin shop, you might pay 50 cents because he has to put it in a 2x2 and staple it and things like that. But you know, basically pocket change. This is an interesting die variety. You'll see that there's an element that appears to be either a doubling of that water pump or some sort of deliberate die manipulation, and it's visible so far to the northeast that it appears to be a reflection in the window pane behind it. Whatever it is, it's collectible. Whether it was a double die or something that was someone playing around at the mint that made this.
Yeah, I have trouble identifying that as a double die. My take on this particular variety is that it is akin to the Wisconsin quarters with the extra leaves. I think somebody at the mint was just tooling around, if you will, and kind of tongue-in-cheek made this, not for any particular reason, just messing around. But that looks very, very deliberate to me. Mm-hmm. So I kind of think it is not a double die as we know it, but more a definite creation by someone at the mint.
So I've asked around with different dealers and collectors. As I mentioned, the regular coin worth 25 cents. In Mint State 63, you might pay $25 for this coin. So it's definitely worth checking your pocket change. Here's another example, 1909 S Barber half dollar. You'll see the regular mint mark on the left. You'll see an inverted mint mark variety of the same coin, and you can see the difference in value. So again, if you got sharp eyes, fun to look for.
As a heads up on the inverted mint marks, this is the only one that was known for quite a while. All of a sudden, when we started looking at other Barber half dollar S mints, we found that, boy, there's some others too. So there are at least 4 or 5, I think, others that will be in the book. So check your barber halves, and if that S mint mark doesn't look like it should, buy it and put it aside. It'll be in the cherry pickers probably.
That's a good segue to talk about a little bit about the Cherry Pickers Guide. Not to make this an infomercial, of course, I will mention that if you're a member of the ANA, you can borrow all Whitman books for free from the Dwight Manley Numismatic Library. But as Bill has mentioned, cherry picking is alive and well. It's a vibrant part of the hobby. New discoveries are constantly being made, and as new types of varieties come out, people start to look at the S mint marks, for example, and start to find things that others were not aware of. The fact is, you can't talk about cherry picking without talking about the Cherry Pickers Guide. Bill Fivaz has been a coin collector since I think about 1950.
Mm-hmm.
He's earned recognition as one of the country's most respected authorities on numismatic errors and die varieties. Longtime contributor to the Guidebook of United States Coins, which we know as the Red Book, and with the late J.T. Stanton, he co-authored and launched the first Cherry Pickers Guide in 1990 at the Fun Show. And that's really what launched the modern boom in the interest in die varieties.
Mm-hmm.
How many people back then were doing what you did?
Not very many, so we had a clear road to cherry picking. I don't know if you want me to get in a little bit on how it was born or not.
Sure.
My real job was selling chocolate for the Nestle company, which I did for 36 years. It was really a sweet job, if you will. Part of my territory was St. Louis, and I got to be good friends with a dealer out there, Jay Woodside from Scotsman's Coins. I know a lot of you know Scotsman's. His dad owned the shop, and when his dad passed away, Jay took it over. And Jay had a habit of getting into the shop about 7 o'clock in the morning, so I would highline it over to his shop and be over there before I started calling on my customers. And he was good enough to let me go back in the vault and look at any coins that he had, take out the coins that I wanted, the varieties that I wanted, and let me purchase from him. After about 4 or 5 years of that, he cornered me one day. He said, "Hey Bill," he said, "do me a favor, write down the varieties that you want us to look for, and we'll look for you." He said, "Better than that, why don't you write a book on the doggone things?" I said, "Well," I said, "that's a possibility. I'm not an author though." But I was good friends with J.T. Stanton, who lived down in Savannah, and he was a printer. So we linked up and developed the first Cherry Pickers Guide in 1990. It was a little skinny book about like that, but we thought it would do pretty well. And I don't know how many printings it had, but it went very, very well. So after that, we, in subsequent printings, it developed to one of the best sellers really in the numismatic hobby. I know Whitman is very pleased with how it does, but that was the genesis of how the Cherry Picker variety book was formed.
The Cherry Pickers Guide has grown into a good measure of what is popular and easy to sell, and has a good price differential within the hobby community. You know, what people are talking about, what they're interested in, what collectors are getting excited about.
And I should mention one other thing. After about the third edition, JT and I were talking, and the varieties were getting really tough to find now. And I told JT, "Hey buddy, we've created a monster here. We can't go out and cherry pick like we used to." But everybody else was, and that's the name of the game. That's the fun part of numismatics. So we were delighted.
I'll show you. This is a sample entry within the Cherry Pickers Guide. This is the coin that we were looking at a moment ago. So we have the date, we have the variety. This is a repunch mint mark. PUP, or PUP as we call it, stands for pickup point. Obviously for this variety it's the mint mark itself. We have the Fivaz Stanton number, other catalog reference numbers. URS stands for the Universal Rarity Scale. That's a measure of how rare a particular variety is. Interest is the interest factor. How interested hobbyists are in this particular variety. And that's somewhat linked to L, which is liquidity, how easy it is to sell, whether you'll be mainly trying to sell it to specialists, or whether it's a coin that even general hobbyists are interested in. Many dye varieties are listed, well, not many, but some dye varieties are listed in the Red Book. Those are considered the more major varieties. And then there's a text description and any comments followed by pricing of both the normal coin and the dye variety. Bill, is there anything you want to add to this kind of layout?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. We try to be as concise as possible. And as far as new varieties go, and I don't know if Dennis is going to cover this, but as far as new varieties go, our rule of thumb is if you can't see it easily with a 7-power loop, it probably doesn't have a very good chance of getting in the book. Some of the varieties that are shown to us as possible inclusions, I call them picking the fly poop out of the pepper. I mean, it's very, very minuscule, and you can barely see it with a 10-power glass. But if you can see it easily with a 7X or 7-power glass, yeah, it probably is a pretty good candidate. So that's our rule of thumb as far as new inclusions.
Again, in the interest of sharing with you what we have found to be significant within the hobby community, these are some entirely new sections that we're putting into the next edition, which comes out in August. Type B reverse Washington quarters, bust half dollars, which have not been covered in the past issues, long knock Morgan dollars, 1879S reverse of 78 Morgan dollars, peg leg Eisenhower dollars, and an entirely new section on U.S. Philippine coins struck under U.S. sovereignty. There might be a couple that I've missed. I think bust dollars might.
I think we have one bust dollar in there, so yeah. There's quite a few.
So the things I'll be talking about might change. I mean, there might be additional additions, if you will, by the time we get to press and the book comes out in August. But this will give you a good kind of snapshot of the hobby as it stands now in 2020. We have 3 new Liberty seated half dimes, 3 new capped bust dimes, 2 new Liberty seated dimes, 10 new Barber dimes, 8 new Mercury dimes, 12 new Roosevelts, including some moderns, 2 new 20-cent pieces. This will take us all day if I just run through, so I'll summarize the rest. 43 new quarter dollars, ranging from capped bust to Washington. You'll see here that the Washington quarters are the ones that have the most additions. 46 new half dollars, with the Franklins being well represented, capped bust as well, that being a new section. A few Barbers, some Liberty walking. Liberty seated and Barber coins, of course, have their own dedicated groups. They've been very helpful. The Liberty Coin Collector Society and the Barber Coin Collector Society, I believe I got those names right. They've been very helpful giving us information and photographs. 29 new dollar coins, heavily weighted towards Morgans, but we have some Peace, a couple modern dollars, a trade dollar, and 5 Liberty seated that are new this year. 6 new gold coins. Is Ross here? There you are. Ross Johnson been very helpful helping us study the dye varieties among U.S. gold coins. 1 new classic commemorative, and 20 coins within the U.S. Philippine section. I'll run through some additions. These are examples of new listings that are going to go in the next Cherry Pickers guide. The 1919 Mercury dime with a double die obverse. Bill, is there anything you want to say about that particular?
Yeah, this is a dramatic variety, and it is amazing that it has escaped detection for so long. I think it was about 2 years ago that it was discovered, and I don't know the number that have been discovered since, but it's infinitesimal. Could be less than 10, I don't know. But it's one you can see all the way down into the lower grades. So check that motto, "In God We Trust," and see if you can see that doubling on the right-hand side. It's a rare variety, and I think it's going to be the cover coin too.
Yes. Yep.
So it's going to increase in desirability as the time goes on. As I say, very dramatic. And if I could just interject something, when a book comes out, usually the authors or co-authors get the credit for it. We are so thankful to have specialists in the field that are dedicated to a specific area, like Morgan Dollars or Franklin Halves or Seated Liberty. We draw on their expertise all the time, and without them, this book wouldn't be anywhere near as popular as it is. So we want to thank very sincerely all the contributors from the different clubs and societies, and we just can't say enough about their cooperation and willingness to share their information. So a big thank you to them.
I echo that wholeheartedly. I think that's a great point to make. This isn't just one or two authors or editors making decisions, because obviously there could be potential conflicts of interest. This is very much a hobby community effort, and kudos to Bill for vetting hundreds and hundreds of recommendations. You know, everybody has their favorite coins, their favorite varieties, and sometimes you have to pick the fly poop out of the pepper, as you say, and get your loops out. And Bill has the unenviable task of telling folks, yeah, it's a little too rarefied or not quite what we're looking for. But everything you see here that we're showing you that are new additions are ones that have excited the hobby community. And as Bill said, they tend to be very noticeable, very quickly recognizable, if you know what to look for. This is an example of an overdate, the 1806 Drake bust $50 with a 6 over inverted 6. Something to be on the lookout for. Bill, any commentary on this one?
No, this is listed in the Red Book, and somebody will say, well, why is it in Cherrypickers? Well, the prices on this have risen dramatically, and we have to take that into consideration too to try to keep you folks up to date pricing wise. When the Red Book comes out, the prices in there are sometimes, pardon me, but not relevant at the time that it comes out. So we try to keep you up to date through special coin varieties that have increased dramatically or seen a change.
Let's see, this is the 1968 S Kennedy $50 proof with an inverted serif S over a knobtail S. I think it's a good example of a somewhat modern coin.
Yeah, this is one you can cherry pick, folks, because nobody knows about it until the book comes out. So this is kind of a heads up and a what do they call it now? A spoiler alert?
Sneak preview, yeah, spoiler alert, yeah.
This is I'm very impressed with this particular variety. I've never found one, but I just learned about it about 6 months ago. So I'm now looking at every 68S proof half that I can see. But it is one that is easily identifiable, and the fact that it's not only a repunchment mark, it's one style of a S mint over a different style of an S mint, which is very rare.
I would mention too here that one of our main contributors to this next volume, the volume editor, is Larry Briggs, who I'm sure many of you know. Larry has been a dealer forever, collector forever, one of the greatest specialists and experts in collectible die varieties living today.
With an incredible memory.
Yes, he has an incredible memory and instant recall. Yeah. He remembers details of how much he paid, how much someone else paid, who they bought it from, when they bought it, where they bought it. It's a remarkable resource for us to have, a walking encyclopedia like Larry. Bill, of course, is up to date and very active as well still. Anything else you want to add about Larry? praise
No,
kudos?
we rely heavily on his expertise, primarily because he's in the market and he knows prices.
Yeah.
He knows what the coins are selling for. Whereas very honestly before, sometimes the contributors, primarily myself and JT, and some of the editors, were not in the market. We were not attuned to the current pricing. And now we're very, very confident with the prices that are going to be in the new book. And really, for the first time, I have to admit that for the first time, the prices are going to be very, very realistic, which is the guts of the book, really. So we're absolutely delighted to have Larry as the editor.
I would mention too, in case anyone doesn't know, JT Stanton passed away about a year ago.
Yeah, just
about a year ago now, and unexpectedly and unfortunately, he was a good friend of mine. He was a good friend to many collectors, and just another living legend, as Bill is, in the world of die varieties and numismatics in general. So we miss him. This is an example of not a new listing, but a listing that was in the last volume that has a lot of new information added to it. In the 5th edition, volume 2, when we had new varieties, we did not include the URS, so the rarity scale. We didn't include the interest factor or the liquidity, and we also did not include pricing. So all of those varieties that were new when the last edition was published and did not have that information will have it now. So we have a few years of market data. We've updated the rarities, the interest factor, the liquidity, and now we have pricing for all of those varieties in multiple grades. This is the 1917D Type 1 Standing Liberty quarter with a double die reverse, another dramatic example of doubling. Bill, any insight or stories about this particular coin? Or
not on this particular coin, but just to delve in a bit on new varieties, we quite often, and most often, when a new variety comes out, there's no track record for prices. So what we're doing is not putting prices in because we don't have any reliable information. The important thing is that you know that particular variety is out there. Now, in the future, there may be prices elsewhere that will pick up on that particular variety, and be sure to use those, of course. Also, prices for normal coins that we have included in the past, they changed dramatically from the time the book was published. So we're prompting people to refer to the current pricing for normal coins in your price list, a gray sheet or Coin World or whatever. Much more reliable than putting in prices that mean absolutely nothing. So we're trying to update in every area that we can.
And even if pricing does go out of date, it's important to see the kind of differentials that you're talking about. You know, is a variety worth double what the normal price is? Is it worth 10 times? That's valuable information, even if the actual pricing goes a bit out of date. And I would also mention that Larry Briggs is a noted specialist in Liberty seeded coinage in particular. So and we have a lot of Liberty seeded varieties that are being added, so you can take that to the bank, and we value his contributions in those areas in particular. So, and I've just listed, without picturing them, a few more examples, and Bill, feel free to chime in on any of these. The 1966 Roosevelt dime from the special mint set with a 5 on the cheek. 1944 Liberty walking $50 with no engraver's initials. Bill, is that something that you see quite often in that series?
There are several dates that have it. The 29S comes to mind, the 45P, 44P. There are 2 or 3 others also that do not have the engraver's initials, which are in the lower right-hand corner, the AW. Just been polished off or worn from die erosion. The ones that you want to pay particular attention to are the ones that show absolutely no trace of an AW. Sometimes you see a very weak AW down there. Those really don't qualify. And at this point, I'd like to mention one thing that we mentioned in the grading class the last couple of days that we had here. And it's in regard to no-date buffalo nickels. And it concerns a variety. Don't poo-poo those no-date buffalo nickels. Everybody knows the 1916 double-die nickel? Super rare. Rarer than the overdate. But you can identify a 16 double-die nickel even though you can't see the date. How? That long feather behind the neck of the Indian, that is